Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new MinotaurZombie review slash thoughts on Grandia, or Grandia. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that and I'll probably be using it interchangeably throughout the review. Someone will correct me. Anyway, for those who don't know, Grandia was originally a Sega Saturn game developed by Game Arts in a JRPG genre, and it was later ported to the PlayStation for the US audience. Right off the bat, I'll just get this out of the way. From what I understand, the Saturn version is the superior version. PlayStation version suffers frame rate slowdowns, as well as worse graphics in general. So, and I did play this on a PSP, so the frame rate may have been worse because of that. I'm not sure, but I have heard reports that the frame rate's pretty bad to begin with. So, just kind of a basic overview of the story of Grandia. You play as the young protagonist Justin and his adoptive sister Sue, and Justin wants to be an adventurer. He has the adventurer fever. His mom was a pirate and his dad left on an adventure long ago and left him with a mysterious cube thing called the Spirit Stone. So early on, Justin, being told by the museum director, he goes to the mines. And there he learns about the potential of learning about a bygone civilization. And that's generally the gist of the story for 3/4 of the game. It's just Justin wanting to go adventuring for adventuring's sake. There's no save the world plot. There's really no... It's not like man burned down my village, must defeat evil man. It's just about a boy wanting to go explore, and that's what I really like about this story. It's very innocent. It reminds me a lot of Skies of Arcadia in some ways, where it's just that not really world is in massive destruction mode, I guess. Basically the main plot happens in the last 3/4 of the game, and it's really condensed and kind of jammed together, which is alright. The pacing is a little all over the place there. And generally, I enjoyed the not saving the world part of the plot more, where you're just going around and exploring stuff. The characters themselves are interesting enough. Justin seems incredibly one-note at first, but I don't know why. Some people might find him incredibly annoying, but I found his gung-ho adventurism kind of infectious. He gets excited about everything. And throughout the game, you'll meet a ton of varied characters, and your party members will always be dictated by this story. So you'll have 4 party members at max in your party at a time, but the story will always determine who those 4 are going to be. So people will come in and out throughout the game. One interesting thing that they did with this game was the dinner scenes that I really liked. It really helped flesh out the characters a lot, as well as kind of provide insight into your current situation. Basically, sometimes when you rest, sleep in an inn, all the characters will have dinner together, and from there you can choose who to talk to, and they'll have a conversation depending on who you talk to in the order you talk to them in. And it's not fully fleshed out as much as I'd like it to be, but it's a really unique idea, and I really liked how it worked. If you're someone who absolutely must talk to everyone in a town in this game, it's going to drive you nuts, because the towns are absolutely jam-packed with people, and it's one of those things where you have to talk to them 3 or 4 times to get the entire conversation. But the one thing I really like is that they have your party members themselves cut in and actually talk back to the NPCs, which I feel is a good trait to have that not a lot of games have done. So that's something I really, really enjoy. Going on to the presentation of the game, the graphics look for the time, I bet these graphics would have looked amazing, and they still look good today. They're a little rough around some edges. You can see that it's an older game. They go for 2D sprite characters on kind of a 3D plane. For the most part, it looks good. I really like the amount of detail they were able to put into the 2D sprites, like victory battle poses, and you can see a lot of expression, a lot of animation to these sprites, which really makes it stand out. It still looks a little dated. Mostly the 3D does. The sprites still look really good. And I gotta give big props to whoever did the character portraits that appear during dialogue, because normally I don't like those very much, but they did a fantastic job of expressing the character, what they're thinking at that moment, which I feel not a lot of games did right during the time. Normally it's like a static character portrait and it just looks generic as hell. The music in this game is, I feel it's going to be really polarizing. I thought most of the soundtrack was fantastic. I liked most of it, but there was 2 tracks in particular. I tried to find, it's actually really hard to find these tracks. The one that plays in Typhoon Tower, and this one that plays on like the Snowy Mountain Dungeon area. The thing with the music in this game is it's very like, a lot of it is very like ambient sounding. It's not your typical music that you would normally hear in these kinds of situations, which works really well in some areas, and I absolutely love it. But those 2 tracks, I actually had to turn the sound off in the game. It was driving me insane, and that's something I must never do. But as always, I'll be playing my favorite tracks from the game throughout this review/thoughts, and there is a lot of good tracks here. It is really genuinely a good soundtrack for the most part. But let's get into the meat of what this is all about, at least in my mind. I mean, I loved the story characters, and the presentation was pretty good, but what stands out to me in the Grandia series, this is the first one I've ever played. The battle system and the gameplay was very, very good and very innovative, especially for its time. If you guys have played Child of Light or Penny Arcade on the Rain-Slick Precipice 3 something, you'll know exactly what you're getting into with this battle system, because those games ripped it off completely. Which is funny, considering most people could say that those games are revolutionary with their battle system. Grandia did it years ago. But if you don't know, think Final Fantasy ATB gauge at the bottom, but everyone's on the same gauge. So when you get to a certain point, you enter your command, and then there's a delay between the command happening, between, like, you put the command in, and it's got to travel a little further before your character will do that command. So what you have here is a system where you have 2 basic attacks. You have combo, which is like a 2-hit attack, does more, standard damage or standard attack. Then you can choose critical, which does a little bit less damage than a standard combo attack. But if you use a critical and you hit someone between that moment when they enter in that command and before them acting it, you essentially cancel out that turn and send them flying back on the, they call it the IP gauge, but it's essentially an ATB bar. And the game becomes more strategic because you're just trying to cancel the enemy or push them back. It'll actually tell you who the enemy is planning on attacking, as well as what their attack's going to be. So you can see that he's going to use Mega Death Laser on this character. Gotta make sure I cancel this at the right time. There's also special moves, which you will learn, throughout the game, and I'll get into that a little bit more as far as how you learn them. And then you have magic. Magic comes in 3 levels of magic. You essentially have 3 MP gauges. 3 sets of MP. Level 1, 2, and 3. 3 obviously being the most powerful, 1 being the least powerful. The interesting thing here about the battle system is really strategic, and it allows for some good tactical fun. It's a blast. It's really satisfying when you get the cancels to work. The way they handle character growth in this game isn't necessarily innovative, but it is in some regards, I guess. They do the standard, the more you use a certain weapon, or the more you use a certain element of magic, you level that skill up. But it's more than that. As you level the skills up, you'll gain access to more magic and more, special moves depending on the weapons you're using. Every character can only use certain weapons. But the way they handle character growth in this game is you have regular level ups, as you would in most every JRPG where you get experience and you level up. But the stat increases are so minimal and so bad that it's hardly worth noting. And it takes forever to level up in this game. But so how are you going to get your stat boosts? Well, they have a system where depending on what skill you're leveling up, you'll get stat boosts. So for example, if you level up just in sword skill, you'll gain +1 to strength and +2 to wit. If you level up his mace skill, you'll gain +1 to vitality, +2 max HP. So it becomes this interesting build your character the way you want to kind of thing. And I really liked it at first. It felt fine, but there becomes a point later in the game where it just feels a little grindy, especially with the magic, because this game was kind of in that time where its magic animations had to be this long to be cool, and you cannot skip them. It's not nearly as bad as some of the other games at the time, Final Fantasy VIII, but it's enough to be noticeable. And leveling these skills up is as simple as just attacking with the correct weapon or using magic. You'll quickly find which skills level what. But the reason it feels more and more grindy the longer the game goes on is later on, like, Justin will get access to a special move that'll pretty much one-shot all the enemies. That's great. I mean, it's, free, get rid of this encounter. The problem there is it actually does raise Justin's skill levels quite a bit, but you quickly run into a problem where it's, Justin's one-shotting everything, but no one else really gets to hit anything, kind of lowering their skill levels. And it especially doesn't help when a character comes in about 65% of the way through the game, like a party member, and he'll be in your party the rest of the game, and he'll have pitiful skill levels. So I finally have my party up to that point where these skill levels are respectable. I don't feel like I really need to grind anymore, or use moves that are unoptimal for the battle situation just so I can get skill levels. And then this character comes in, and for example, for me, he could have been a great addition to my party, except for the fact that I didn't want to sit there and grind, so he remained almost useless the rest of the game. And some might say that's my fault for not taking the time to do it. It's something I should have done, but I feel like in a system like this, you shouldn't have to grind like that. The only other gripes I really have with the battle system is sometimes the characters will get stuck on each other when they're running up to attack an enemy. Doesn't happen that frequently, but when it does, it can be quite annoying. And as I mentioned, the attack animations can get a bit long. As for outside of combat, everything looks and plays fairly nice. For the most part. There's some dungeons that are really, really maze-like. In fact, almost every area in this game is incredibly maze-like. The saving grace of it is a compass they have at the top of the screen that'll point you in the direction, basically just point you in the general direction of, here is the exit. We're not gonna, steer you through every branching pathway, though. It's just in this area. Which is good, because, oh boy, this game would have been really all over the place otherwise. The problem there is you actually use the L2 or R2 to switch whether the compass is going to be pointing at the exit or the entrance, but it doesn't tell you which one it's pointing at. So if you accidentally hit R2 and it switches back to the entrance, you don't know that it's pointing back to the entrance, and you might end up running back there. Another point is that this game is very linear, and I don't say that in a bad way. There is no world map. It's kind of, when you get to the world map, air quotes, you just point and click to the place you want to go. And the game always tells you pretty much exactly where you need to go. And you'll have your section of the world map, and eventually you'll be done with that section. And the game makes it very clear, so it's not really a problem, but then it'll move you on to the next section. Once you go there, there's no going back. And that happens quite a bit throughout the game. Not a huge deal, because they make it pretty clear. They always say, are you sure you want to take off on this boat and go on an amazing adventure to this new place? But it's just something to note. As far as side quests, there isn't a whole lot that I noticed. I found one side area, and the game makes a big deal to note that this is a secret area. This is for combat only, and it has nothing to do with the story. Which was actually really fun, because it provided some of the best combat gameplay challenges there were. And to be fair, most of the game is very easy. I can only think of dying in that secret area I found, and I almost died to the final boss the first time I fought him, but I still won. Barely. From what I've looked online, I was curious if there were more side quests. There are 2 other kind of secret areas, totaling 3. To make it a total of 3 that you can find throughout the game world. So there is some to do, but there isn't a whole lot. Honestly, it doesn't feel like as big of a deal breaker to me in this game as it does other JRPGs as far as the side quests go, because I feel like this game has enough merit on its own. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's I don't know if I can say it's a must-buy, but I can definitely highly recommend it if you're looking for a JRPG, and I think it's definitely an underrated gem on the PS1. And if you're interested, it's on PSN right now. You can go buy it. It's relatively cheap. Overall, great game. It's a little rough around the edges. It has some pacing issues. The combat can feel a little grindy towards the end. For the most part, what you're getting is in my opinion, one of the best ways you can do a battle system on a JRPG, and the game that pioneered it. It's rough at times, but it really still, I think it still holds up today. I think it's still definitely worth playing today. So, thank you guys so much for listening to this review/thoughts. Until next time, later.